Hi, Enric. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to do this interview. We are very much looking forward to listening to your insight, particularly related to the role of the agent and how a sports lawyer like yourself can add some context to the new regulations that will be introduced by FIFA. So thank you very much, Enric, for being here. We can begin with the first question, which is related to the main changes that FIFA will introduce for agents. So what are those regulations and what are the main changes that we can expect?
Well, first of all, Diego, thank you so much for your invitation, and actually it's a pleasure for me to share these like at least minutes with you. I'm pleased to be part of the crew in the Sports Business Institute, so you can count on me for anything or any activity like after this one. Regarding your first question, FIFA has a plan that still has to be unveiled, that we do not know exactly what will contain, but for what it's been announced since September last year, the main changes that it will introduce in the agents regulations would be like the dismantling of the 2015 system that created sort of a chaos because, like, as I don't know if you remember, but as our friends will remember, in 2008 FIFA developed regulations to control the activity of agents and intermediaries all around the world, which was called the regulations for working with intermediaries in 2008. That was substituted by the 2015 regulations for working with intermediaries that trespass all the burden to the national federations and all the weight for their control. And since FIFA is composed by 211 federations, that created 211 different regulations, which was kind of complicated to deal with. Also, agents were kicked out of FIFA, so agents were not anymore protected by FIFA. And this whole system is what FIFA wants to change and readdress. And next year, if the pandemics allow us, is to be implemented from 2020 on. So the main changes that we can expect that have been already announced are the reintroduction of an exam, so a licensing system for all the agents, which will be obviously, well, we expect that will count with an exam. We'll have an exam that all agents will have to take, to receive their FIFA license. That doesn't exist anymore. They also will take care of controlling the continuous education and let's say that how the agents develop their own practice. So FIFA will be kind of a big brother in the sense of controlling agents and their activities and their professional activity. And also, let's say one of the most and the main two changes from my perspective is the reintroduction of agents within the football family, which is allowing agents to defend themselves before the FIFA jurisdictional committees, the DRC or the PSC. Let's see how they organize the appearance of agents within the FIFA bodies, and the commission cap, which is the star measure, the main measure that FIFA wants to implement in order to control what they themselves called like the jungle law that is like being conducted in the last years.
Right. Okay. Now, that's very interesting because one of the areas where some agents have raised concern is regarding commissions, because there's this element of capping agents' commission. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and how can the agents see themselves affected by this new implementation?
Well, the thing is that it's a commission that is a commission cap, which is a very strong word, because as you know, it's not the same United States than Europe, that all the agents, the European Association has already threatened that as soon as FIFA approves and publishes and implements the commission cap, will go to the tribunals and try to challenge it, like before the European tribunals, etc. And the thing is, it will probably, in the practice, affect it's not the impact that the mainstream public, or the mainstream media think it had. Because in 2016, 17, and 18, it was a report an investigation conducted by the European Parliament, where it came out that the average commission received by an agent in like the whole world is more or less is around the 5% of the operation, whether it's the acquisition of a player, the selling of a player, or the signature of the employment contract. So the 5-6% is more or less the average commission. FIFA wants to implement a 10% on the transfer as a commission cap, and the 3% on the employment contract if the agent is acting on behalf of the player or the buying club. If it's a selling club, would be 10% of the transfer fee. So for me, it's a problem, because that means that agents, which usually their main or the core of their business is not the transferring of the players, but the taking care of the player, the representation of the player, acting on his behalf throughout his career, will be forced to encourage transfers, which is directly against FIFA's policy of maintenance of contractual stability. So agents will be encouraged, or will be at least tempted, to participate in more transfers in order to receive that 10% instead of receiving the 3% that they will receive in exchange of the representation contract, which is a clear conflict directly, because they will try to transfer the player instead of, irrespective of if the best thing for the player is staying in the club, because they will receive 3 times less money for the whole services that they provide. So agents will receive 3 times less for what they invest more time to do. So the representation contract is taking care of the player throughout the year. It will be a 3% of the salary, and transferring the player, which is a one-time operation and probably 1 month of work, will receive 10%, which makes no sense.
Right.
Let's see exactly how it ends up, because FIFA has to still decide how much would be that commission cap. It was announced that will 3%, that could be incremented to a 6% if you are acting on behalf of the buying player and the player itself, or the 10% of the selling club. Let's see if they end up, because it was supposed to be approved in September. It was approved, and then these early 2020, before the pandemics, a new round of conversation was engaged by FIFA with the agents, which didn't happen before. So let's see what ends up being approved and what are the exact figures that are approved. But obviously, it will have an impact, like irrespective of what ends up happening. And for me, it will also cause a secondary effect that will be the accumulation of power on those big companies, big agencies that already have a big chunk of the market, because small businesses, small agents will not be able to survive if they have to charge only the 3%, because at the end of the day, if you have small players playing in small first division countries, or in second division, third division leagues and competitions, it will be very difficult to survive charging just the 3% of a 1,000 euro salary. It will be 30 euros per month, which is very complicated to support the activity of the agent. So those agents with that 3% will probably stop working, because it will not be worth it anymore. And the accumulation of power is not a good idea in any scenario ever. So let's see what can happen.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Now, another area that comes up regularly, and now with the new regulations, is minors. So what are the changes that we can expect? And again, what could be the consequences of these new regulations regarding minors?
Well, first, in 2015, the prohibition was implemented for agents to charge minors, which it's not been published what will happen. Well, I was forgetting. Sorry, I was forgetting one of the main changes. Is like every commission for agents will have to be paid through the FIFA clearinghouse. Like in theory, that will mean that FIFA will know how much agents are charged and for what, increasing transparency for agents and the industry itself. Let's see how the FIFA deals with monthly commission payments, and because at the end of the day, agents do not charge the 3, 5, 7, 8, 10% of an employment contract at the beginning of the contract. They charge it monthly. So let's see how FIFA deals with monthly payments throughout the world. Who pays the exchange rate of the currency? Who pays the transfer itself? The bank commission. So someone will have to take care of those differences, and I don't think any bank will do it for free. So let's see how exactly they do that. So at the end of the day, with minors, it's more or less the same issue. For me, the problem is that professional players are younger and younger. For example, we have the example of Ansu Fati in Barcelona, that he turned 18 last week. So he is now chargeable for an agent. So his agent allegedly did not receive a penny until last week. But he was already playing for 1 year and a half or 2 years under a very complicated contract of 2 years, 3 years extension in exchange of 1.5 or 2 million euros a year. So why a player which has the age to, like the legal age to have a job in Spain after like over 16 years old, with an employment contract, which is a professional employment contract, which is worth almost 2 million euros, does not have to pay his own agent that negotiated that contract on his behalf? Makes no sense. Let's see how FIFA ends up doing in his regulations. I guess that they will address the fact that if a player is already a professional, he will have to pay the professionals to the system, because I'm sure Ansu Fati pays his own lawyer, but doesn't have to pay his own agent according to the regulations. So for me, this measure was not like proportional and was not fair for agents. Let's see how they change it.
Right. Okay. Now, overall, I mean, you've talked about how this will impact across different areas, but overall, what will be the main impact that these new regulations will have on agents worldwide? So, further to what you already told us, is there anything else that you think it's important to highlight?
For me, the main impact will be transparency. So everybody will know, or at least FIFA will know, what agents receive. We cannot forget that in 2015, when the new regulations were implemented, there was an obligation that every 30th of March, every national association should have published how much money agents made during the previous year. So in 30th March 2020, we should have known how many contracts were concluded by agents and players, agents and clubs, and how much money those agents were received during 2019. Unfortunately, as far as I know, I think there's only 3 out of 211 federations that did that. So out of 211 federations, only 3 federations, the Bundesliga, I think it's the FA and in England, and if I'm not wrong, there was another one, but I cannot remember now, and published those figures. So from now on, at least, we'll see if it happens, but at least the plan is that we all know how much money the agents receive for their services to clubs and players. So that will be a first major impact on the industry. Obviously, the fact that agents can go to FIFA will also help them enforce their contracts, because from 2015 up to now, agents have to go and sue the players in their legal jurisdictions, which if a player is playing in England, has to sue them in England. If the player is playing in France, you have to sue him in France. So let's see. That for me is a big change and a big modification of the market, because now FIFA will have a saying, and agents will be able to go and appeal before the CAS, and then that award will be enforceable throughout the world, no matter where the player is living or where the player is playing. Because up to now, if you're an agent, you sue a player in France, and that player the year after is in Germany, you gotta like obtain like a decision in France and then go to enforce it in Germany. Like you have to take it, and if it's within Europe, it's kind of easy. But if then the player is playing in Argentina, you got to sue him in Argentina, and then he goes to France. Again, we have international treaties involved, etc. Award enforcement is kind of easier and faster, so that will help also. And let's see how manageable is for FIFA and the clearinghouse once it's implemented, because the FIFA regulations on agents will probably enter into force before the FIFA clearinghouse is already available. So at the beginning, I will be like the usual system: players pay agents, clubs pay agents, and that's it. As soon as the clearinghouse is available, that everything will be done through the clearinghouse. So it's interesting times. Like Chinese chorus says, I hope you live interesting times. Well, here we are.
Right. Indeed, indeed. And then finally, to wrap up the final question, obviously we're in a complicated year because of the pandemic. A lot of these regulations, if I'm not mistaken, were already due to have taken place this year, but they have been postponed. We've heard about March, we've heard about September. So what can we expect, and when can we expect these new regulations to take place?
Well, that question is for my dear friends Emilio Garcia Silvero, James Teaching, Ornella Desire, and Jacques Blondin, not to me. Yeah, like unfortunately, well, FIFA and UEFA have had a very busy year, 2020, not only because of the pandemics, but they amended all the regulations that were available, with the exception of minors, regulations on minors and regulations on intermediaries by FIFA. But UEFA has changed everything, and FIFA is on its way to change everything, and they have a plan to amend all the regulations that they have in force right now. But the pandemics like kind of blew up all the plans that everyone had. So at the end of the day, we now have to not only deal with the consequences of the pandemic, but also with the new regulations in like that are planned to come into force. So I don't know. I hope it's in 2021 when everything is at least cleared up. Let's see if, as expected, is controversial or not. I hope it's not. I hope FIFA amends the regulations in a way that will not make everyone happy, because nobody will, like, it's impossible to make everybody happy, but at least that in a certain way they accept the fact that within Europe it's kind of difficult to justify implementing 3% commission cap, because that will, if the agents go against the regulations, they will not go only against the 3%, they will go against like the whole regulations. So if the European courts or the European tribunals decide to accept or to upheld the claim of the agents, it will be against the whole regulations, and then we will not have a regulations again, and then we will have to approve a new ones. So I hope it's better. It's always better to negotiate a modification, an amendment like this with all the stakeholders. And for me, the main thing that you could have set against the plan that they announced in September last year was precisely that FIFA did not take into account the opinion of the agents, which are the main stakeholder affected by these regulations. I think they saw it, and in January, February, March this year, 2020, they engaged in conversations with the agents, and we got to see what came out of those conversations.
We will be paying close attention to what happens next, because of course that's very relevant to our students. Well, Enric, it's been a real pleasure having this conversation with you. We are very much looking forward to having you back as a fantastic guest speaker for not only our certificate in Football Player Intermediation, but also our Master in Football Business and Management. Every time you come and deliver your sessions, people really come out with valuable insights. So we're very excited to have you back on, and look forward to catching up with you very soon for the course.
Awesome. I love to hear that. So don't you can repeat it as many times as you deem necessary. Thank you so much for your time, Diego.
Thank you, Enric. All the best. Talk to you very soon.
Same thing. Bye.